Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vistaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachaline Nivasesha Sunyavadi Pashtatada Sataline Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaura Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And I just remembered, I forgot last week we mentioned we'll try and find those nice prayers which introduce each chapter or give a summary of each chapter. So let me write it down on my little notepad. Do you remember we was doing that some time back? We was reading a nice poem about each chapter. It
Yes.
was very nice because
Yes.
yeah, a good summary of each chapter. So after today's reading, I'm going to get straight on it.
Yeah, it's nice to recap the whole chapter.
Yeah. I just got to search for it. If I search for it now, it might take 10 or 15 minutes. So time is very precious. Okay, so we've began 15th chapter. We've moved into chapter 15 after chapter 14, obviously, the three modes of material nature. And this is quite technical. I'm sure as you a little bit technical. It's getting into detail. It's called the yoga of the Supreme Person. So how the Lord manifests or the actual entanglement of the jiva in the material world, which is the energy, which is the external energy of the Lord. And as we're reading, and the means and ways to be free of this entanglement. So this chapter really emphasizes that we are very, very entangled in the meshes of material existence. So we did text 1 and 2, so I'll just read the translation, and then we can read text 3 and 4, which come together. So translation to text 1 of chapter 15. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "It is said that there is an imperishable banyan tree that has its roots upwards and its branches down, and whose leaves are the Vedic hymns. One who is a knower, one who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas." Okay, so we are entangled in that banyan tree. Yeah. Text 2. The branches of this tree extend downwards and upwards, nourished by the three modes of material nature. The twigs are the objects of the senses. This tree also has roots going down, and these are bound to the fruitive actions of human society. So amazing. This one verse describes the whole of material existence. This is what is the material worlds. Okay, so let's then read text 3 and 4. Let's see the purple. It's relatively short. So someone like to read text 3 and 4? Have a go at the Sanskrit.
Shall I go?
Yeah, go ahead. Thank you, Baba Rajkishore.
न रूपमस्येह तथोपलभ्यते नान्तो न चार्दिन्न च सम्प्रतिष्ठा अश्वत्थमेनं सविरूढमूलम् असङ्गशस्त्रेण दृढेन चित्वा ततः पदं तत्परिमार्गितव्यं यस्मिन् गता न निवर्तन्ति भूय तमेव चाद्यं पुरुषं प्रपद्ये यतः प्रवृत्ति प्रसुता पुराणी. Translation: the real form of this tree cannot be perceived in this world. No one can understand where it ends, where it begins, or where its foundation is. But with the determination, one can cut down this strongly rooted tree with the weapon of detachment. Thereafter, one must seek that place from which, having gone, one never returns, and there surrender to that Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whom everything began and from whom everything has extended since time immemorial. Purport. Shall I go? Or?
Yes, very nice verse, isn't it? Carry on, yes.
It is now clearly stated that the real form of this banyan tree cannot be understood in this material world, since the root is upwards and the extensions of the real tree is at the other end. When entangled with the material expansions of the tree, one cannot see how far the tree extends, nor can one see the beginning of this tree. yet one has to find out the cause. I am the son of my father. My father is a son of such and such person, etc. By searching in this way, one comes to Brahma, who is generated by Garbhodakshai Vishnu. Finally, in this way, when one reaches the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that is the end of the research work. One has to search out that origin of this tree, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, through the association of persons who are in the knowledge of that Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then, by understanding, one becomes gradually detached from this false reflection of reality. And by knowledge, one can cut off the connections and actually become situated in the real tree. The word asanga is very important in this connection because the attachment for sense enjoyment and lording it over the material nature is very strong. Therefore, one must learn detachment by the discussion of spiritual science based on authoritative scriptures, and one must hear from persons who are actually in knowledge. As a result of such discussions in the association of devotees, one comes to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then the first thing one must do is surrender to him. The description of that place whence, having gone, one never returns in this false reflected tree is given here. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the original root from whom everything has emanated. To gain favor of that personality of Godhead, one has only to surrender. And this is a result of performing devotional service by hearing, chanting, etc. This is the cause of the extension of material world. This has already been explained by the Lord himself. Aham sarvasya prabhava. I am the origin of everything. Therefore, to get out of the entanglement of this strong banyan tree of material life, one must surrender to Krishna. As soon as one surrenders unto Krishna, one becomes detached automatically from this material extension.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any immediate questions or comments? Right.
Here,
Yeah,
it's explained that the tree is up and the roots are down,
yes, yes.
which is roots are upwards. This is in the material world, and roots are going down in the spiritual world.
No, the other way around.
It's the other way
Yeah,
around.
it's
Okay.
it's the other way around. So this material existence is based on the reality of the spiritual world, in that it's a reflection of that place. Yeah. So because that place exists, then this place exists also. But remember that remember the example is given like on a bank of a river. You got the tree here like this, then there's the bank.
Yes.
There's a bank, then it reflects upside down. So the original place where we belong is in the spiritual world, and that's the original tree. That is the actual reality. And then, do you remember what the bank represents? What is the cause of this reflection or being entangled? And remember that from last week? Icha, dvesha, or it's desire. Yeah, it's desire. Yeah, to enjoy separately from Krishna. So therefore, this whole material existence, which is like a very entangled. Remember, we described about the banyan tree. Even one tree, it can look like a forest. So yeah, so just to confirm, Maharaj Kishore, that the up is the positive, and the down, where we are entangled in, is the material world.
So
Yeah.
we are the upside down. The one with the tree which is upside down is us.
Yeah, we're upside down, which is not very comfortable. Not very
Okay.
comfortable position to be in. As far as I can remember, there is a nice picture in some Bhagavad Gitas where it gives a nice picture. It's done of this. And it describes, if you look on the branches, there's all the different enjoyments of fruitive activities and sense enjoyment all on the different branches. Then there, and even being pious and religious, it still means you're entangled in the material world. Yeah, if you just engage in religious rituals without actually the sense of developing love for Krishna, but you just engage in the rituals of religion and you're pious, then you're still in the you're still in the midst of the branches of this banyan tree. So you have to go further. Yeah. We have to go further and develop loving devotional service to the Supreme Lord. And that's why this verse is nice. It describes, and then thereafter one must seek that place from which having gone, one never returns. Okay. And that's the original, and that's the proper form of existence.
So from the branches and leaves, we have to go forward to the trunk, don't we?
Well, yes, but also no, because Prabhupada it says here, it describes here, we have to find out the cause. So from one aspect, that's kind of nati, where you're trying to find out the original cause of everything. So it's quite a long, exhaustive path, but we've been given the direct process of rendering devotional service to the Supreme Lord Himself. You understand? Because here it says, just here, I am the son of my father, such and such a person. By searching in this way, one comes to Brahma, who is generated by Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. Finally, in this way, one reaches the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that is the end of research work. So we have come to this stage. Perhaps we can say in previous lives we was going for, but we have come to this stage. This is the end of research work. Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. That Krishna is the source of everything. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then what in here? Yeah, one has to also what else pick out? Um, oh yeah, just as well. Just think. Sometimes the question comes up like here. It says, thereafter one must seek that place from which having gone, one never returns. So that's what Sastra says. So sometimes devotees bring up the argument, sometimes it's in relationship with that never-ending argument about the jiva, whether his actual origin, etc. But sometimes it's brought up, okay, because for billions of lifetimes, we've been misusing our independence, and that can always be done. That's the nature of the jiva, that he has the choice of how to act. So sometimes devotees, or sometimes brought up, yeah, like if we go back to the spiritual world, will we make the same, will we make the mistake we've been making for millions of births in the material world? You heard that question? Yeah, because I've got independence and I'm still going to have it by if I ever get to the spiritual world in some distant lifetime. I still have that independence. So is there a danger that I might come back? No, there's not. Why Why do we say that? Because Sastra says. It's not just here and other places in Gita as well. One who's gone there never comes back. No one has ever, and unless specifically they have some service for Krishna, yeah, like Prabhupada did, as we know. Prabhupada said he didn't want to come, but Krishna encouraged him to come to write his books. Okay, so one never returns. Yeah. And yeah, also it said with the weapon of detachment. So that means the weapon of detachment just means knowledge. Yeah. With knowledge, you can be detached. When you know something doesn't taste very nice, then you're detached from it because you have knowledge. Yeah. You understand? Because you have knowledge of it. Because you know it doesn't taste very nice. So then for you, it's not an issue whether you should eat it or not. You're just not going to eat it. So you're detached because you have knowledge of it. So what's being described here is this sword or this this, yeah, the weapon of detachment, which comes from knowledge, and this knowledge is being explained here in this chapter. Okay. Any other questions or comments here?
I was thinking, is it still like we would have made progress, in our spiritual life? We would have come to that stage that we see Krishna everywhere, Krishna. So then we wouldn't be having that anasas, envy, jealousy, all that kind of thing, to want to come back here.
Yeah, you have to be Twama Kinchana Gochara. You have to be completely done with this material world. There's nothing here for you. Yeah. There has been nothing here and there will be nothing here. There is nothing here in this world for the jiva. Yeah. There's nothing here. There's only, yeah. So that can be proportionately realized is when the glory, yeah, when we realize the spiritual nature of Krishna. Then in comparison to what we're experiencing in our devotion to Krishna, then the material world is seen for what it actually is, a temporary, useless place, which is not going to fulfill my heart's desire. Yeah. I just want to wake up in the morning and hear the Brahmins in Krishna's village chanting prayers and hear the churning of the milk and then the spiritual realm. Yeah, that should be only so that desire for that we have to develop. But here's interesting as well. Therefore, one must learn detachment. So again, by discussion of spiritual science based on authoritative scriptures. And one must hear from persons who are actually in knowledge. All right. So you're not going to develop detachment unless you're doing this. Unless you're developing this, unless you're discussing spiritual science, which is what we're doing now. So great. We're actually learning detachment by discussing the Bhagavad Gita. Yeah. That's the result. So it's not ordinary book. Yeah. Yeah, and then it goes on. As a result of such discussion and association of devotees, one comes to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then the first thing one must do is surrender to him. Yeah, okay. So that's the idea. So we are learning to surrender. Yeah. Okay.
Also,
Yeah,
is it that Maya would not let us, Maya Devi would not let us go back till we are completely cleaned, purified?
Yeah, in a sense that we until we are purified, meaning in a sense that we no longer desire anything here. Yeah. Just like when it's quite subtle because we have to free of material desire, isn't it? So material desire means that you consciously want something in a material world. It's you want something. It's not like there's the soul. Well, there is the soul is completely transcendental, but from the material perspective, it's not like the material desires we have are not part of us. Ultimately, they're not when you look at it from the soul perspective. But we have to give up desiring to find shelter, happiness, contentment in the material world. Yeah. And we can give that up when we hear about the better, we can, about the other end of the banyan tree, about the spiritual world. Yeah. Just let Sejal in, admit Hare Krishna. Okay.
I've got another question.
Yeah, please.
In the Shad Goswami Astak, the fourth line, which says, Kujat Kokil Hans Saras Gana, Kirne Mayurakule, Nana Ratna Nibadha Mula Vitapa, Sri Yukta Vrindavane. So the Goswamis,
Hare Krishna.
sorry.
Oh, nice you have learned that. Very nice. I've been meaning to learn that for nearly 30 years. I've come around to you.
I
Oh,
sing it every day, that's why I know it.
yeah.
But it's like the Shad Goswamis, they they went up into the spiritual world, and from the roots they found out the Ratna, Nana Ratna, the jewels, which they brought up down here for us to
All right.
see. And it's a Radha Krishna, for the pleasure of Krishna, they brought it out here so the
Wow.
people like ourselves can be acquainted or will be inspired to go back to Godhead.
Wow, that's nice. It's very poetic, isn't it? Beautiful prayers, the Sat Goswami Astakam. Yeah, so they're relishing the jewels. Is that just a comment, isn't it? Is that comment? Oh,
Well, I was thinking, so how did they go to the roots? Did they
uh-huh.
go into because we are in a spiritual world.
We're in
If
a
they're,
material world. So
well,
yeah, you go to the see, you go to the root because the absolute nature of Krishna, you 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 go to the root by sound.
ah, I didn't yes,
Yeah, by
thank
sound.
you.
So, because, well,
Yes.
they're Nityasiddha, but let's just take it from their sadhaka perspective. So they are in the spiritual world through their Shravanam Kirtanam and in their bhava of samadhi. They are perceiving the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. So then they're writing what they're seeing through their bhajan, and what's being revealed to them by Krishna. Whereas Rancho Prabhu gave a nice class yesterday morning. He used the word channeling. Interesting. So they channel the spiritual world through their purity. So that's what it actually means. It doesn't mean they was, well, in one sense because they're Nityasiddha. So from that perspective, but in their sadhaka forms, it's not as if they had a 2-week trip up to the spiritual world and came back. No, so they experienced the spiritual world through chanting the holy name. Yeah. And that's
Okay,
what,
thank you very
yeah.
much.
So
Thank
that's
you.
so the spiritual world can be accessed through spiritual sound. Can be
Okay,
accessed through spiritual sound.
thanks. Yeah,
And that's,
sometimes we can sing and we know, but we don't understand the philosophical meaning like just now. I've been singing it for a long time, but I didn't know how did they manage to go. And now I know it's a spiritual
yeah,
sound.
yeah, through Shravanam Kirtanam. Excuse me. That's what's wonderful about the holy name, according to our level of because our level of maturity or advancement in chanting, that any time you can go to the spiritual world. You just have to hear the holy name. Yeah. Anytime you can go there, from one sense.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you. Thank you.
Krishna. Okay. Now this is very nice verse, this next one. I learned this some time ago. This describes the whole process of spiritual practice. Okay, someone like to read this one? Okay, I'm going to jump in.
I can try.
Go ahead. Thank you, Babaluda. Have a go at the Sanskrit. I just remember.
Nirmanam.
I just remembered the meter. I think you can have a go. I just did go through it once, and you can try and follow. Nimana moha jita sanga dosha adyatma nitya vinivritta kama dvandve vimukta sukotoka samgyan kajanti amuda patamavayam tat. Anyway, do your best. Don't worry how it comes out. Go on.
Nirmanam mohadita samgadosha adhyatma nitya vinivritta kama dvanvairvimukta sukha dukha sanjnair kachhantya mutha padam avyayam tat.
Yeah, well done. It was really good.
Those who are free from false prestige, illusion, and false association understand the eternal, who are done with material lust, who are freed from the dualities of happiness and distress, and who, unbewildered, know how to surrender unto the Supreme Person, attain to that eternal kingdom. The surrendering process is described here very nicely. The first qualification is that one should not be deluded by pride, because the conditioned soul is puffed up, thinking himself the lord of material nature. It is very difficult for him to surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should know by the cultivation of real knowledge that he is not lord of material nature. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the Lord. When one is free from delusion caused by pride, he can begin the process of surrender. For one who is always expecting some honor in this material world, it is not possible to surrender to the Supreme Person. Pride is due to illusion. For although one comes here, stays for a brief time, and then goes away, he has the foolish notion that he is the Lord of the world. He thus makes all things complicated, and he is always in trouble. The whole world moves under this impression. People are considering the land, this earth, to belong to human society, and they have divided the land under the false impression that they are the proprietors. One has to get out of this false notion that human society is the proprietor of this world. When one is freed from such a false notion, he becomes free from all the false associations caused by familiar, social, and national affections. These faulty associations bind one to this material world. After this stage, one has to develop spiritual knowledge. One has to cultivate knowledge of what is actually his own and what is actually not his own. And when one has an understanding of things as they are, he becomes free from all dual conception, such as happiness and distress, pleasure and pain. He becomes full in knowledge. Then it is possible for him to surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hare
Okay,
Krishna.
thank you. Hare Krishna. Okay, so any immediate questions or comments here? So what's been described here is that we have work to do. Yeah, we have work to do. So it's kind of the first stages of Krishna consciousness is coming to terms with like who we're not. And you're going to hear that again and again if you read Srila Prabhupada's purports. Yeah. Because lifetime after lifetime, you could say we have been in illusion. So there's quite a few layers of this illusion. So that's why we have to study the whole science of Krishna consciousness. Yeah. And it's in here where Prabhupada says, because the conditioned soul is puffed up. Just like, I mean, sometimes we go over quickly Prabhupada's words, but just puffed up. I mean, like, we all know what it means if we've been reading Prabhupada's books, but the word puffed up, you get a picture of a balloon, or someone who you think you're much bigger than what you actually are. You're puffed up. I'm puffed up, you know. And he thinks he's, Prabhupada said, thinking of the Lord of material nature. So that's why, you know, the surrendering process is not an immediate thing. It's not like switching a switch. If I switch this switch, you're going to light off, you know. Wish it was that quick. Okay, surrender, done. No, because the layers of our illusion go very deep and right into our psyche and right into our intelligence. So we have to have a few spiritual experiences, which generally takes place as we practice the process of Krishna consciousness. You know? Sometimes it can be quite sobering when you realize how small we actually are. And it can be quite. I remember one time I had this kind of, not, I don't know how to explain it, existential crisis, I was realizing how, to one degree or another, how insignificant a jiva I was. And I became scared. I became a bit fearful of everything, of the whole material world, just considering how small I am. Just meditate on this point. I became a little bit unhinged. But what do we do when when we get insights by Krishna's grace that we are no one, that we are insignificant? Then we can surrender to Krishna. Yeah, then we can surrender. That's what's being described here. Yeah. If we still have a sense, if we still have a sense of false ego, a sense of false pride, we're not going to be able to surrender to Krishna. So, so those are free from false prestige and illusion. It goes on, and false association. So it's quite a bit in this verse. Who understand the eternal, who are done with material lust and free from the dualities of happiness and distress, they know how to surrender. Of course, it also works the other way because we're so bewildered by our false prestige, we're in illusion, and we don't understand the eternal. We're completely controlled by lust. We are completely in the dualities of material existence, and we're completely bewildered. So what do? We surrender as well. So you understand? So we have to start somewhere. Yeah. So we take to the process of Krishna consciousness and we surrender to the process of Krishna consciousness. And then gradually we have to unpick. We have to unpick the different illusions. You have to go, yeah, that's why spiritual life can be quite purifying actually. Because you come to terms with your false conceptions of the self. And it can be quite sobering. Yeah. But at the same time, we're developing the sense of being Krishna's servant. So we're not, yeah, there's even my Guru Maharaj is describing there's a state where a devotee goes for, actually it's there in the Brihat Bhagavatam Rita, where a devotee through the elevation of consciousness comes to the point of realizing realizing the self, and then there's a danger at that point that one may take to the impersonal path, where one has realized the material world is actually, yeah, they're completely transcended the material world. Now, there may be a danger at this high level, and then Bhakti Dev manifests the sense of devotion to the Supreme. So then one becomes touched by devotion to Krishna, and one takes shelter of that identity. Because we have to have some identity in this world. Yeah. So it's either material or spiritual. Anyway, going on a bit here. Is there any other questions or comments? Yeah. We have to be free from false association caused by familiar, social, and national affections. I mean, that's seems like this is getting worse in materialistic society, isn't it? As we're so-called progressing, people becoming more and more, what do they call it? What's the word for it? Becoming more and more, what's the word? Nationalistic, isn't it? Like just over the weekend, a few days ago, there was a massive march in England of everyone proclaiming to be English, and they don't want any immigrants in this country, and they're waving thousands of flags are waving, the Union Jack and the George Cross, and I think there was hundreds of thousands of people were convincing themselves that they are English. And they're very proud of it. And every country is the same. You've got proud of being Ukrainian, proud of being Iranian, proud of being Palestinian, proud of being Israelis, proud of being Russian. It's just so, yeah, it's complete. Yeah, that is getting worse, and they're people willing to die for these things, die for the illusion that I am, Russian, die for the illusion that whatever. Yeah, so we have to So we have to be free of all these false designations. Yeah, I'm not Gujarati. Sorry to offend any Gujaratis here. I'm not Gujarati. I'm not Bengali. I'm not this. I'm not English. Yeah, we're spirit souls. Okay. Should we read another verse? Electricity in here. I'll have a read of this one. Okay. Na tat pasyate shuyo na shanko na pavakaha yat katva na nivatante tat dhamma paramam mama. Okay, now that Lord's, this is in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna doesn't really describe in detail the actual spiritual world. This is as far as it goes. It's in this verse. Yeah. He gives a brief description of that spiritual world, that original banyan from which place for which this is a reflection of, and it's here. Yeah. That supreme abode of mind is not illuminated by the sun or moon, nor by fire or electricity. Those who reach it never return to this material world. Okay, so for your interest, scholars of Bhagavad Gita, mundane scholars of Bhagavad Gita, they are in protest of Prabhupada putting in the word electricity. This is Prabhupada putting this word here, electricity. Because there was no electricity when Krishna was speaking Bhagavad Gita. At least I don't think there was. Yeah. It was introduced in the early, was it? Anyone know when electricity was used? Late 18th century? I'm not sure. Yeah. So Prabhupada put it in here. So the scholars have, they like pick at this. It's not there. Why is Swami Prabhupada putting it in here? Yeah. So Prabhupada's doing it for a preaching perspective. So yes, so there's no need of electric light bulbs in the spiritual world. Yeah. Okay, the purple. The spiritual world, the abode of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, which is known as Krishna Loka, Goloka Vrindavan, is described here. In the spiritual sky, there is no need of sunshine, moonshine, fire, or electricity, because all the planets are self-luminous. We have only one planet in this universe, the sun, which is self-luminous, but all the planets in the spiritual sky are self-luminous. The shining effulgence of all those planets, called Vaikunthas, constitutes the shining sky, known as the Brahmajyoti. Actually, the effulgence is emanating from the planet of Krishna, Goloka Vrindavan. Part of that shining effulgence is covered by the Mahatattva, the material world. Other than this, the major portion of that shining sky is full of spiritual planets, which are called Vaikunthas, chief of which is Goloka Vrindavan. As long as the living entity is in this dark material world, he is in conditioned life. But as soon as he reaches the spiritual sky, by cutting through the false perverted tree of this material world, he becomes liberated. Then there is no chance of his coming back here. In this condition, in his conditional life, the living entity considers himself to be the lord of this material world. But in his liberated state, he enters into the spiritual kingdom and becomes an associate of the Supreme Lord. There he enjoys eternal bliss, eternal life, and full knowledge. One should be captivated by this information. He should desire to transfer himself to that eternal world and extricate himself from this false reflection of reality. For one who is too much attached to this material world, it is very difficult to cut that attachment. But if he takes to Krishna consciousness, there is a chance of gradually becoming detached. One has to associate himself with devotees and those who are in Krishna consciousness. One should search out a society dedicated to Krishna consciousness and learn how to discharge devotional service. In this way, he can cut off his attachment to the material world. One cannot become detached from the attraction of the material world simply by dressing himself in saffron cloth. He must become attached to the devotional service of the Lord. Therefore, one should take it very seriously that devotional service, as described in the 12th chapter, is the only way to get out of this false representation of the real tree. In chapter 14, the contamination of all kinds of processes by material nature is described. Only devotional service is described as purely transcendental. The words paramam mama are very important here. Actually, every nook and corner is the property of the Supreme Lord. But the spiritual world is paramam, full of six opulences. The Katha Upanishad 2.2.15 also confirms that in the spiritual world there is no need of sunshine, moonshine, or stars. The tattva shoyo patina chandatakam. For the whole spiritual sky is illuminated by the internal potency of the Supreme Lord. That supreme abode can be achieved only by surrender and no other means. Okay, so you can't go there by spaceship. You can't build a staircase. No mechanical means. You have to take to the process of Sharanagati. Yeah. All right, it's a few things here, but any immediate questions or comments? Yeah.
May I ask?
Yeah, please.
Srila Prabhupada sometimes says that we should take the devotional services very serious. What does it mean, serious? It means I don't understand how we should take it seriously. Hare Krishna.
In one sense, you could give different answers to that. But in one sense, we're not just reading about it; we're actually practicing it, and we sign a kind of and we sign up. You know, we sign a name on the dotted line, and we actually take up the practices of bhakti. I guess you could say, which means chanting the holy name of the Lord. So we enroll, and we become sadhakas. It's not just a weekend thing. You know what I mean? So it's not just a week. We actually change our life. We actually identify as devotees, and we change our diet, you know, and we change our entertainment. And yeah, that means taking it seriously. Yeah. Not just reading a little bit, you know, and one foot in and one foot out in one sense. So, and I guess from another perspective, we can always be more serious. That's that's kind of for individual self-reflection of how can we be more serious in our japa, how can we be more serious in our application of Krishna consciousness. So that's unlimited scope. But from an objective perspective, it means that someone takes to the process of devotional service, and then there's the whole principle of Guru Padashraya, taking shelter of the spiritual master, etc., etc. Taking up some service for the Lord. Yeah, so that you could say that's one perspective of being serious. Is that okay for now? Or anyone else has any comments of that?
Thank you.
Yeah, no, yeah. Sometimes you see it. Some people come to the temple, you know, and they're coming and they learn the Haribol, you know, Haribol Prabhu, and they get to know devotees, but they don't become sadhakas. They don't actually take up the specific principles of chanting the holy name of the Lord. So they're not so serious, you know. So they're not gonna, you know, then they're not gonna yeah, they're not gonna enter into this abode. Yeah. Okay, so something to think about there. We can always be more serious. Yeah. Anybody else? Any other questions?
Yes, it's
Yeah, go on.
the last paragraph. It says, but the spiritual world is paramam, full of six opulences.
Yeah.
One of the opulences to like sannyas, to give up.
All right.
But in spiritual world, how do you give up?
How's that? So what's the six opulences? Let's go through them.
Wealth,
Wealth,
intelligence,
intelligence,
fame,
fame,
renunciation. That's the one,
reputation, and
renunciation.
beauty. So we're not, so how does that manifest as an opulence in the spiritual realm? Let me just find it here.
Because we can't renounce Krishna, and Krishna doesn't
Oh,
renounce his
we shouldn't
devotees.
renounce Krishna.
So where is renunciation?
One second, let me just find it here. Where is it?
Last paragraph?
Yeah, it's quite a long paragraph. The last one is a long paragraph. Oh no, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong, excuse me, I'm looking at the wrong verse. Yeah, the word Paramama is very important here. Actually, every nook and corner is the property of the Supreme Lord. But the spiritual world is Paraman, full of six opulences. All right. So perhaps I put that as a question. How does renunciation, how is it manifest
How does renunciation work in spiritual world?
in the spiritual realm? Put that as a question. We've got a few devotees with us today. If you're giving class and someone asks this question, no? I'm not sure. That's why I'm asking. I could
Prabhu,
speculate.
perhaps we renounce even our spiritual desires and give everything to Krishna according to his will. Perhaps in that way.
Don't know about that. What does everyone think about that? That renounce the spiritual desires and give. Oh, yeah, you're saying on top of that, give everything to Krishna. So you're saying, yeah, well, in the spiritual world, there is no selfish desires based on the self. It's the desires are always towards the all-attractive divine couple. Yeah, your desires are always in relationship to them. That's the nature of the spiritual world. That's the natural attraction to divine couple and to please them and to serve them.
Yes, but sometimes we imagine service in our own concocted way. So maybe we should renounce that concoction in the spiritual world and follow according to what Krishna's plan is.
Yeah,
Because we still have spiritual desires.
yeah. So you could say you might say that. Yeah, the spiritual realm. So, in other words, how that's going to manifest practically is that you will take direction from service from from the associates of Krishna. Yeah. Just say one is in associate, so one takes birth in gopi form, then you're not going to directly serve Radha and Krishna. You're going to go through Lita, you're going to go through Rupa Manjari, you're going to go through, you know. So you're right, Mother Guide. So you're going to get bestowed or gifted service given to you or blessed for you by either Lalita, Rupa, or one of the Astasakis, or if the cowherd boys is going to be a specific direction for service that's coming from his associates. And that's the natural, that's the natural way of serving Krishna, that you want to take up that service which is bestowed upon you, So you may desire a certain service even, but to actually execute that service, it has to be to actually get blessings for that service, then it's going to have to be blessed. You're going to have to be directed towards that by the Lord's associates. So in that sense, you could say, yeah, it's renunciation of your own conceptions of serving Krishna, serving Radha and Krishna. But anybody else, how does renunciation manifest in the spiritual world? Well, how does it manifest in Krishna? Well, let's just in the spiritual world. Anybody else? Any philosophical speculations? You're allowed to speculate here. It has to be philosophical, though. Yeah. Okay. You've asked a very deep question, Mother Rajkishore. Was it Rajkishore? It wasn't. Was it? Yeah, you asked. Yeah.
I did. It's quite confusing. I was reading through it, and
So what we have to do, we have to fast until it's revealed. We have to go do austerities until the answer. Yeah, we could, interesting. It could be just a point that the renunciation is manifest, kind of, I'm speculating here, philosophical speculation. It is opulence of Krishna, and how it manifests in Krishna in the spiritual realm, is that he is completely attached to the loving affection of his devotees. So he isn't particular. So in that sense, he's completely renounced. Did that make sense? So in the same way, the devotees, they're completely renounced, definitely from the material world. Anyway, I think I'm speculating here. What I do, I should note that question down. It's an interesting question. And I'll do a little bit of research and we'll come back next week, yeah?
okay, thank you.
So you just remember that question, Mother Rajkishore, and next
I
week
will. I will.
we shall have a go at it, yeah?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, yeah,
I'll try to find out as well. I'll
yeah,
look
yeah. What does it mean exactly? Yeah. So anything else we want to bring out here from this verse? There was one thing which caught my attention as well. Yeah, now sometimes it's described that the tripad or tri eka, that this material world is like 1/4 of reality. But here it's described in another perspective, that actually reality is the spiritual world. And within that spiritual world, there's a tiny part which is covered by the Mahatattva, and that's the material world. But in relation, so it's like one little cloud within a vast open blue sky. There is one cloud, and that little cloud, that's the material worlds. So the major portion is the spiritual realm. Yeah. And there's more people there than there, as we know, there's more people there than there are here. Like there's more people who are out of prison than those who are in prison. Okay, it depends what country you go to. But and in a normal society, there's going to be, most people will not be in prison. Only a small percentage of them will be. So that's the material world. That's us as conditioned souls. So that's described here. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Anything else here we want to highlight or bring out? Yeah. And or this part as well. One should be captivated by this information. Anyone captivated by this? We should be. Yeah. The fact that we can enter into the spiritual kingdom and become an associate of the Supreme Lord and enjoy eternal bliss, eternal life, and full knowledge. That should be wow. That should be captivating and tantalizing. Yeah, we want to find out. We want to find out more. We should desire, Prabhupada says, he should desire to transfer himself to that eternal world and extricate himself from this false reflection of reality. Yeah. So generally, when we have a hard time, we might desire that type of thing. So we have to look out for the illusion of this material world. It looks like a comfortable place. It looks like reality. It looks like a place to be happy. Yeah. So that's the illusion of Maya. That's what it creates. It creates the illusion that this is a good place to be. Yeah. So it's very powerful. So we have to break out of that illusion. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, more could be said. Let's a couple of minutes left. Wow, time just flew away. Yeah, this next verse is a very often quoted verse from Prabhupada. Anyone know this verse? Mamaibam sa jiva loke jiva bhuta sanati. Do you know this verse, Maharaj Kishore? Yeah, so
Yeah, it's
yeah.
very common. It's
Yeah.
always being said.
Mamaibam sa jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatanaha manas sastendriyani
Stani.
istani kasati. So this important verse, when we want to read it, don't have time, but just this verse is often quoted in discussions in defeating Mayavad philosophy. Jiva Goswami brings out this verse a lot, that the jiva never loses his identity and becomes one with the Supreme, with Bhagavan. And here it is, the proof. Mamaevam sa jiva loke, here. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. And Prabhupada will probably speak about this in the purport as well. You can understand how this defeats the Mayavad philosophy? We are eternal fragmental parts. There's never a time when we are no longer fragmental, that we are one. No. We're eternal fragmental parts. Yeah. So I think this is often quoted. Mamaivam so jiva loke. Yeah. My eternal fragmental parts of Krishna, like spirit, like sparks of the fire. Okay, so let's leave this for next week. And so I've got a bit of homework to do, look into this question by Raj Kishore, and next week, hopefully we'll try and find that nice glorification of the chapters. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us. Monday session of Bhagavad Gita. We're gradually making our way through Bhagavad Gita, isn't it? We're on chapter 15 now. Before we know it, we'll be on chapter 18. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Bhagavad
Thank you
Gita.
very
Wonderful.
much.
Thank you.
15 Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanandi Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Going.